Welcome to our monthly sync up meeting. So yeah, just a few things to talk through. First, I just wanted to double check and see if there are any questions, concerns, or customer feedback on our decision to deprecate and remove container network and host security. Judging by the lack of comments in the agenda, I'm guessing no, but just wanted to make sure everyone's aware of that. Even though we're deprecating and removing it, I'll just add a little additional note here verbally is that customers can still manage their production rules through GitLab. And really one of the best benefits of all of those features was the ability to store your code, your policies as code in GitLab and get the benefits of a source code repository. So you had full version history, you could do two-step approvals and that sort of a thing. That still will be possible using GitLab. We just won't support a native integration, like an out-of-the-box integration with any of these vendors. But if a customer or user wants to add their own Helm charts into their copy of the cluster management project template, they can actually deploy those Helm charts in production with the new Kubernetes agent secure CI/CD pipeline. And so, they would have to kind of instrument those steps themselves, but it still is entirely possible to do on top of GitLab to manage your network policies and your other things inside of GitLab as code and have those pushed into production automatically. All right, so then the big one we've got coming out in 14.8 is we're releasing security approval policies, and at the same time we're deprecating vulnerability check. So yeah, I expect this is a rather large deprecation and a rather large new feature. I know we talked through a lot of this async. So, Taylor, unless you want to verbalize any of those, I'm happy to just kind of skip down to the updates I have.
No, I think the async was great. It helped me with my customer conversations in the last week. So it's kind of exactly what I needed.
Awesome. So I do want to just provide a couple of updates. There are two modes for editing the new security approval policies. There's the rule mode and the YAML mode. The YAML mode is available for 14.8. The rule mode just barely is, there still is a slim chance it makes it in 14.8, but as of right now, it's looking like it's going to just barely miss it. So if you have got a customer who's on GitLab SaaS, then they're going to see it here really soon because it's going to be in production almost any day, but it's probably going to miss the build cutoff. So if they're a self-managed customer and they want to use the rule mode, it'll have to be 14.9 for them. So that's unfortunate, but I don't think that's going to be a huge deal. Again, if they're comfortable with YAML, they can start using it in 14.8. And if not, hopefully that's not a big deal for them to wait one extra release.
Question about that, Sam. Yeah. If they did go with the YAML route and then later on in 14.9, let's say it does get released to be in the other way, are they compatible with each other, or is there a migration that needs to happen at that point again?
Great question. Nope, no migration is needed. It's the difference between rule mode and YAML mode is purely all on the front end UI. It actually all translates down to YAML and gets stored as YAML in this linked security policy project. So no matter what you do, it ends up being YAML. The rule mode is just a convenience for users who don't want to learn our YAML syntax just to create a policy. Yep, so they're exactly, it's just purely a front end construct there. In fact, it might be worth just showing real quick the mock that we're working towards for this. If I can open it. So in here, the way this works is you'll actually get this, wow, that's really zoomed in. You'll get this YAML preview on the side, and then as you fill out the rule in the rule mode, it'll live update this YAML preview. So you can switch between rule mode and YAML mode. it's really fluid to go between them. And that way, you can edit it in YAML if that's your preference, or you can edit it here and you can see that YAML live generate as you work on the right-hand side. When we actually researched this feature, we found that there were super strong opinions about this. It was really polarizing. It was like Android and iPhone or Mac and Windows, like everybody had a super strong opinion about either I only work in YAML and don't give me this rule mode garbage, or I don't want to touch YAML, that's for developers. I only want to work in like a nice UI. So it was really polarizing. Everybody had a super strong opinion and it was like one way or the other. So that's why we're providing both ways of editing the policy. The other update I have is just around migration. Since I last posted this last week, we've been able to work out our migration plan a little bit more. We are actually going to be able to migrate 100% of the vulnerability check rules, and this will run with 15.0, with the upgrade to 15.0. If your customer is on GitLab SaaS, then it could happen. I mean, we merge things in ahead of time to GitLab SaaS. It's not like it all happens on the 22nd. So that migration could happen anytime between April 22nd and May 22nd. It just depends on when that gets merged in and when it gets run. But as part of that, it is a breaking change. And the reason for that is just the permissions on it are going to be different, because instead of allowing all maintainers and higher on the development project to edit these policies, now the YAML is stored in a separate security policies project. So I did actually want to get some feedback from the two of you here today. I have an open question of, when we run this migration, there's a scenario where the user does not yet have that security policy project set up. So when we run the migration, we're going to automatically create it with a migration bot. We're going to automatically link it to the development project. And we're going to automatically merge in those new policies. But who should we put by default in that migration scenario as maintainers on the security policy project? Would be the question. Should we put just the development group owner? Should we put maintainer and higher? We're trying to figure that piece out.
My recommendation would be to put maintainer and higher just the same as what is today, and notify the people that that has happened, because that's probably going to cause a riot.
Yeah, I think that if they have the access to create a policy in the first place, then they should have access to the policy project that's created, but some sort of notification. So when I've been like messing around with it and I've created policies and projects that don't have policies yet, and it creates the new security policy project, I didn't realize that was happening in the workflow. It like took me a minute to read and see that the project had changed when I was making the merge request to merge in my policies. So more notification there would be very helpful. And my customer got confused too yesterday.
Got it. Yeah, that's good to know. Eventually, we would like to actually hide away that linked security policy project entirely, so that customers don't have to worry about where those things are being stored, but that's pretty far out on our roadmap. So yeah, that's good feedback that we might need more notification.
Yeah, I kind of expected at least like a badge or something to be applied to my project when I implemented that. But yeah, it was just not as clear.
Yeah, that's great usability feedback.
So the project, I'm sorry, I haven't actually played with this feature. So the project gets created under the same group?
It does, yep, by default.
Okay.
So you can actually go through and create your own project somewhere else, and it does not have to be in the same group. So you can actually link a development project to any other project that you have access to anywhere in GitLab. So there are not restrictions there. But if you go to create a new policy and you do not already have that linked up, then what it will do is it auto creates a new project in the same group and links those up for you just to get you started.
Cool.
But the nice thing about doing it that way is now you've got support for separation of duties, because you can have a different set of maintainers on that project than the maintainers you have on your development project. So all of the developers on the development project can see the policies, but only maintainers on the security policy project can actually merge in changes to policy. All right, well, that's great feedback. Any other thoughts or comments on that change or on security policies in general?
I'm curious, if a new project like that is created automatically by us, is it going to impact people's or the customers' size, the size limit question that comes up? And I'm curious if that's going to affect them, or if they're, you know what I'm talking about? Like, you know, when I have a repository in SAS, I have a certain amount of size limit to it. And I think we're putting some new restrictions around it recently, going to happen soon. So will this affect that or not? That's just a question.
It will, but it's going to be minimal. I mean, we're talking about adding in a YAML file to their repository. So, you know, I don't know what the size is going to be on that, a couple kilobytes. So the impact is going to be nearly negligible. All right, any other topics to discuss today? Any other hot issues, focus areas, feedback that you've gotten from customers related to Protect that I can help you with?
I think at least for the recording, since we mentioned it in Slack, it's worth noting that was it that additional analyzers aren't being added into the action types until group level policies are implemented?
Correct. Yep. Yep, we are. It's a trade-off. We do have to add support for each of those individually. And so we've gotten a lot of feedback and requests for having it at the group level. So we kind of did SAST and secret detection and DAST and container scanning, and now shifting focus to the group level. But we will come back and add in the other analyzers. We do plan to support all of them. And actually, eventually, we plan to merge all of this together with compliance pipelines so that you've got one solution for enforcing things that run instead of two. So lots on our roadmap, but we can only do one thing at a time.
Yeah, I think that the group level policies are far more exciting than adding in the additional analyzers for now, at least from what I'm seeing with my customers.
Awesome. Well, it's good to hear that validation. Oh, actually, I do have one other thing that I did not put in the agenda. We are planning to move container scanning down to the free tier, similar to what was done with SAST. So, you know, users can run it. They can get the JSON artifact that they can manually download and view, but that's pretty much more or less it. They won't be able to view, you know, really anything else in the UI, right? We're not giving them access to the security dashboard or vulnerability list or merge request, you know, security approval policies or anything like that. Are there any concerns from either of you with that happening? It's actually on my to-do list, probably soon, sometime this month, to message it out more broadly to sales.
Nope. Are we at some point intending on like building out or acquiring our own container scanning solution that would remain in like the ultimate tier? Or No.
No, simply
Okay.
because what is out there already in the open source community is really good, but we are planning to augment so container scanning is really a basic thing. It's not like some of the other analyzers that do more complex stuff. It's a very basic string comparison. So it pulls a list of all of the operating system packages that are installed on the container, and then it has a vulnerability database, and it does a comparison between the two. So the logic to grab that list of packages on the container, I mean, it's really pretty straightforward. You're basically running, like if it's Debian, you're running like an apt list installed command. You're just looking at, technically, I think they actually open up the folder for the package manager and grab a list of all of the packages, but it really is, there's nothing special there. There's no secret sauce, nothing special in any of that. Really what the value add comes down to is how good is your vulnerability database. And so we're planning to continue to take everything that is in the Trivy vulnerability database and the Gripe vulnerability database, but also to merge in our Gymnasium database content. So that's on our backlog. And we actually have two versions if you've been following that project. The naming is a little bit weird, but we have Gymnasium DB, which is proprietary. And then we have a new advisories community database, which is available for anyone to use, but it's a 1-month time delay from Gymnasium DB. So we're planning to incorporate both of those, but the advisories community one will be in free, and the Gymnasium DB updates will be in the paid version. So that way, the underlying scanner will be the same. We're not going to go build our own proprietary scanner because, again, like it's really basic technology. There's no secret sauce there, but we will be able to differentiate those between free and ultimate based off of the quality of the vulnerabilities and the timeliness of detecting them.
Cool.
Yeah, great question. All right, I think that's everything I had for today. Unless either of you two have more. Thanks for joining today, and feel free to reach out and sync up in the Slack channel as needed.
Awesome.
Quick question for you. With Protect, some of this stuff going away, we're deprecating container network and host security. What is left in balance for Protect itself?
Yep, great question. So we still have two other categories. We have container scanning and we have security orchestration. Security orchestration includes all of the security policy stuff that we've been doing, the security approvals, we're actually temporarily removing the alert dashboard, but we plan to bring that back in the near future. So all of that security orchestration stuff, we're in the process of figuring out like exactly how we think about Protect from like a charter perspective. What's our go forward charter? We do still want to participate in production security to the extent that there's overlap with the AppSec team. And that's really what this deprecation is about. We were going after the InfraSec team, and we just, now is not the time for us to go after the InfraSec user. They're not already in GitLab. It's a pretty tough sell to bring them into GitLab with our current feature set. And we really would need not only a big investment there, but probably also some pricing and packaging changes to accommodate the way that that market works. So that's why we're moving away from container network and host security. What we're not moving away from is like running container scans in production. And that piece, that's an area of overlap. InfraSec cares about that, but so does the AppSec team, because ultimately it's the developers that have to go fix those problems. Whereas if you're just dealing with network firewall rules, that's not necessarily on the developers to fix. So we're just trying to recenter ourselves on problems that ultimately have to make their way back to developers to fix and address. So again, we're still figuring out the details of that charter, but part of that is still a delineation between production security concerns versus non-production, and Security orchestration is a shared category. It's in protect at the moment, but it could just as easily be insecure or perhaps even manage for that matter, because it's not really a, there's nothing unique about that that puts it necessarily in protect. So again, we're still trying to figure that out. That's a question we don't have fully answered ourselves yet.
Okay, no problem. I was just curious because it looked like you had quite a bit that you're giving up there, and so I wasn't sure what protect is going to mean in the future. But thank you for clarifying. I think that makes a lot of sense. The new direction seems pretty good.
Yeah, and part of that deprecation is just freeing up resources to double down and focus even more on container scanning and security orchestration. So every time, if we're doing one thing, then we're not doing something else because of that. And, no matter how you carve it up, like you're never going to get more done by doing more things. And so you've got to, so, this really is just a matter of refocusing our efforts and allowing us to move a little bit faster on those remaining two categories.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thanks for your time today. Appreciate the questions and the engagement here.
Thank you, Sam.
Thanks. Have a great week.